Chapter 41. I accept the responsibility. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 41. I accept the responsibility. Calder's resolute attitude completely infuriated the elders of the parliament. Do you really not know your Audrey's strength and level? With the help of the family's resources, she had cultivated for 18 years and was only a level .1 battle fighter. There was probably no one in the entire Davis family who was more useless than her. Let alone the children of other noble families, even the daughters of the poor would exceed level 1 if they had worked hard for 10 years even without any resources. Audrey's reputation as a piece of trash resounded throughout Spark City. As a father, how could you not know? How much shame and bad reputation had this brought to the family? The five families' grand competition was the most important competition in Spark City. It even determined the status of the five great families to a certain extent. To the five great families, this was a grave and important matter. The Davis family had more than 500 young people under the age of 20, and there were only 5 young geniuses who could be sent to participate in the 5 Clans tournament. There were only 5 people in the entire family who were qualified to participate. What right did Audrey have to participate? Calder, you've really gone too far. You have to know that Audrey has the mark of the Davis family on her. Everything she does will affect the reputation of the family. If she causes a scene in the 5 families' grand competition, you must bear this responsibility. You have to think clearly. It's still not too late to stop her now, the family elder Pierre said with an incomparably cold expression. As the person with the oldest seniority in the family, he placed the most importance on the family's honor. He would never allow the family's juniors to act recklessly and do things that would damage the family's reputation. I'll take responsibility. Calder said indifferently. He would not be the patriarch anymore. So why would he be afraid of taking responsibility? Whatever responsibility he had, he would take it as well. It was nothing more than losing the position of the patriarch. All these years, he had let Audrey suffer so much for the sake of the family. However, the family had treated the father and daughter like this even at the end. This made him feel disheartened. This time, he stood firmly on his daughter's side. No matter what she wanted to do, he would support her. Very good. The Grand Elder laughed out of extreme anger. He said coldly, Calder, there's no need to wait for the vote for the patriarch election in 3 months. After the 5 families' grand competition is over, the parliament will initiate coercive measures and revoke your patriarch's position. As for Audrey's marriage plan, it cannot be changed either. She must marry into the Fairley family. The family's orders are above everything else. No one can disobey them. Grand Elder Pierre was only one of the 9 elders in the parliament. Therefore, he could not represent the entire family. However, after he said that, the other elders in the parliament remained silent. It was equivalent to tacitly agreeing with the Grand Elder's order. Obviously, they had already communicated privately and reached an agreement on this matter. Calder's expression was calm. He was not surprised by this result. He was already mentally prepared for the worst. Ever since his wife mysteriously disappeared and he had no one to rely on, he had been running into walls in this family as if he was treading on thin ice. On the surface, he was the head of the family, but his situation was quite complicated in reality. The decision-making powers of the parliament were no longer in his hands. They were all controlled by the elders in the family who had more seniority and deeper foundations. This was also one of the reasons why Audrey, as the daughter of the patriarch, was bullied everywhere in the family. If he, Calder, had the ability and power, no matter how useless Audrey was, who would dare to bully her? In the end, it was all his fault. Chapter 42. Kate came out of seclusion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 42. Kate came out of seclusion. Calder, no one can disobey the family. Anyone who disobeys the family will not have a good ending. The third family's elder Houston's eyes were filled with malice. Within the family, the conflict between the third and sixth lineages was the greatest. He and Calder had many fights over the years. In fact, the fights between the upper echelons of the family had directly affected the lower and middle echelons of the family, as well as the younger generation of the family. This was also the reason why Kaki had targeted Audrey so much. Originally, the parliament had agreed that as long as Calder voluntarily gave up his position as the patriarch, the council would withdraw Audrey's marriage plan. However, if Calder and Audrey insisted on going against the family head or even doing something that would tarnish the family's reputation, the family would be ruthless. So not only was Calder going to lose his position as the patriarch, but Audrey also had to marry that fool from the Fairley family. Calder did not say anything. Instead, he turned around and left. The meeting ended on bad terms. Ever since he decided to resist, he could not be manipulated by the family anymore. He had long been disappointed with the Davis family. He did not want to stay in such a family. If they really forced him into such a desperate situation, he could escape with Audrey. The world was so big. Then, they would be able to find a place that accepts them. With his strength as a level 32 heroic, if he wholeheartedly escaped with his daughter, no one in the Davis family would be able to stop them. What? Audrey is going to participate in the 5 Great Clans competition. Are you sure? L.RG in the living area of the first line of descent, Kate, who had just come out of the cultivation room, was stunned when he heard the news. He knew Audrey's strength the best. If she were to participate in the 5 Clans Grand Competition, any random person would be able to easily beat her to the ground. No. Any random person would be able to push her to the ground with just a finger. Therefore, it was completely meaningless for Audrey to participate in the 5 Clans Grand Competition. It could even be said that she was going to be abused. What's going on? Kate looked at his attendant and asked with a serious expression. He knew Audrey's personality very well. She was not someone who liked to be competitive. Audrey had never been interested in competitions. So how could she participate in the 5 Clans Grand Competition all of a sudden? Young Master, Miss Audrey had signed up to participate. Unfortunately, the family disagrees. I heard that the council is making a big fuss, but they haven't been able to stop Miss Audrey from participating in the competition. Kate's guard said respectfully. The 5 Clans Grand Competition was not just a competition between the younger generation of the 5 clans. Any youth of Spark City could participate in it. Therefore, any young person could sign up as long as they met the age requirements. This was the consensus between the 5 great clans and all the factions in Spark City. It was also the reason why the Davis family was unable to stop Audrey from participating. If she insisted on participating, then no one would be able to stop her from participating. This matter had already caused a commotion in the family. There were even rumors circulating in Spark City. But, unfortunately, this was the way of the world. The people of Spark City did not talk about good things, but jokes quickly spread throughout the world. For forces like the 5 great families, whenever a joke appeared, it would immediately spread throughout Spark City. Why is she going to participate in the 5 great families competition? Kate frowned. The upper echelons of the family had seriously put her down, yet she still insisted on going. This did not seem like Audrey's character. Chapter 43. Prayer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 43. Prayer Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, I'm not sure. I heard that. The guard hesitated for a moment before carefully glancing at Kate. As Kate's personal guard for more than 10 years, he naturally knew that young Master Kate's feelings for Miss Audrey were genuine. Heard what? Kate asked coldly. He vaguely realized that something was amiss. I heard that the reason Miss Audrey is like this is to take revenge on the family for sending her to a political marriage. The guard said it out loud. Even if he did not say it, the young master would find out sooner or later. What? Kate's expression froze. Political marriage alliance. The family wants to send Audrey to be wed off. In order to deal with the five families' grand competition, he had been cultivating in seclusion for the past few months. He had never left the house. Therefore, he did not know anything about the family. Not long ago, the family council decided to send Miss Audrey to marry the Fairley family. And the guard hesitated. And what? Kate said coldly. And she will marry the third young master of the Fairley family, the guard said with a wry smile. Hearing this, Kate's expression instantly turned extremely dark. The third young master of the Fairley family was the most famous retard in Spark City. By doing so, the family was pushing Audrey into the fire pit. Moreover, the fact that the Fairley family had sent a foolish son to marry the direct descendant of the Davis family was clearly disrespectful to the Davis family. Kate knew very well that the reason why the family had agreed to this marriage and did not hesitate to lose a bit of face. It was most likely because they had taken a fancy to the rapid development of the Fairley family over the years. Over the past few years, the Fairley family could be said to be the most dazzling family in Spark City. Their development momentum was quite fierce. There were many talented people and experts in their family. In a few more decades, the Fairley family would surpass the current #1 family in Spark City and become the new head of the 5 great families. Those ignorant old things in the parliament. Kate fiercely cursed. To be in the Fairley family's good books, they would even push their own clansmen into the fire pit. The guard lowered his head and did not dare to speak. He could see that his young master was in a terrible mood and was on the verge of erupting. Otherwise, the usually gentle and refined young master would not have done such a thing as insulting the elders. Where is my father? I'll go find him. Kate could not hold it in any longer and immediately went to find his father. The guard looked at Kate's back and shook his head slightly. It was useless. Although young Master Kate's father was also an elder of the parliament, this matter was not something that 1 or 2 elders could change. Even if their direct line of descent fully supported Audrey, it would be difficult to change her situation. Father, I've rarely begged you, but you must help me with this matter. Kate knelt on the ground, pleading with his father. The elder of the first branch of the parliament, Kate's father, Ferry, was helpless at this moment. His son was very outstanding and had always been his pride. In the large Davis family, his son Kate's talent could be ranked in the top 3, and it was almost certain that he would enter the high-level parliament in the future. There was even a high chance that he would become the patriarch of the new generation. To be able to give birth to such a son, he was naturally very proud. However, when it came to Kate liking Audrey, he had always disagreed and firmly opposed it. As a father, how could he hope for his son to marry a woman like Audrey? Chapter 44. Method. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 44. Method. What kind of person was Audrey? To put it nicely, she was mediocre. To put it bluntly, she was trash. A woman with no merit was not qualified to marry his son. He had always had high expectations for Kate. Naturally, he hoped that he could marry a truly favored daughter of the heavens, a wife who could help him and be of great use to him. More than 10 years ago, how did Calder, who was not ranked in the family, become the patriarch? It was because he had an amazing wife. Without Audrey's mother, Della, Calder would not even have the qualifications to enter the elder council, let alone become the patriarch of the family. Ferry hoped that his son would be able to marry such a woman. From then on, he would rise to the top. That was why he hated and rejected Audrey. He did not even want to see her and his son, Kate, appearing in the same place. As for sending Audrey to the Fairley family for a marriage alliance, he agreed and strongly supported it. Kate, Audrey really isn't worthy of you. She's just a piece of trash. Is it really worth it for you to do this? Ferry looked at his son with deep helplessness in his eyes. Kate had always been self-reliant since he was young. In his impression, he had never begged him for anything. Even when he encountered difficulties, he would always find a way to solve them himself. And this time, not only did he beg him, he even knelt to beg him. Naturally, this was really difficult for a father to witness. "It's worth it, father. Please help me." Kate lowered his head, his tone full of pleading. He did not know if Audrey liked him. After so many years, Audrey's heart was walled up. She was like a startled bird, living very carefully and cautiously. Perhaps because of the environment, she had an instinctive vigilance against anyone. She had to be careful every day whether or not others would hurt her, so it was very difficult for others to know what's in her heart truly. However, it did not matter whether Audrey liked him or not. He only needed to know that Audrey was not willing to marry into the Fairley family. That was enough. "Kate, I really want to help you, but this matter isn't something I can change unless," Fairy said helplessly. "Unless what?" Kate suddenly raised her head, a glimmer of hope rising in his eyes. "Unless Audrey can amaze everyone in the 5 Families Grand Competition and enter the top 50. That way, she won't have to marry into the Fairley family," Fairy said slowly. Calder and Audrey had completely fallen out with the family. The current situation could not be changed with just the support of 1 or 2 elders. The only way to change was to follow ancient rules, such as the ancestral teachings. The family's ancestral teachings were higher than the parliament's. And one of the ancestral teachings was that the talented women in the family could only marry people in their family and not marry outsiders. The purpose of these ancestral teachings was to keep the outstanding bloodline in the family to prosper for a long time. As long as Audrey could prove herself and enter the top 50 of the 5 Families Grand Competition. Then, even the Parliament did not have the right to ask her to marry the Fairley family. Hearing that, the light in Kate's eyes instantly dimmed. How could Audrey enter the top 50 of the 5 Clans Grand Competition? That was simply impossible. According to past references, the fighter needed to be at least level 8 to come close to the 50th rank. This was the lowest standard. If she was not level 8, then it was impossible to enter the top 50. Chapter 45. Spirit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 45. Spirit Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. There were so many geniuses and experts in Spark City. As a result, it was extremely difficult to get into the top 50. Sometimes, even the representatives sent by the 5 great clans might not be able to get into the top 50. After all, every time the 5 great clans held a competition, thousands of young experts participated. Some of them were not even people from Spark City but other cities. "Father, you know that's impossible." Kate looked at his father. "Of course, it's impossible," Fairy said faintly. "Then what other way is there?" Kate knew that since her father had said the word "unless," then there must be a way to deal with this. Moreover, it was the kind of method that could help Audrey without her entering the competition. Unless you can become the champion of the 5 Clans Grand Competition, the #1 expert among the younger generation in Spark City. Then, you'll be able to defend Audrey. Fairy finally revealed his goal, which was also his expectation. He looked at his son with a burning gaze, his eyes filled with deep anticipation. He knew that his son was indifferent and did not like to compete with others. So he might not go all out in this 5 Clans Grand Competition. Therefore, he needed something to motivate Kate. And Audrey was undoubtedly the best way to motivate Kate at this moment. First place in the 5 Families Competition, huh? Kate slowly raised his head, his hands unconsciously clenching tightly. "That's right. As long as you can rank the first in the 5 Families Grand Competition, your wishes will be granted, and even the family council would not be able to go against you. By that time, it wouldn't be a big deal to protect Audrey. It would be easy for you." Fairy looked at his son. As a father, he naturally understood his son to a certain extent. Kate's strength had never been truly revealed. He did not like to compete and did not like to be in the limelight too much. Otherwise, the title of the number one genius in the family would definitely belong to him. In this five families competition, he hoped that his son could truly give it his all once. No matter how many ranks he could reach, he had to show his ability in front of everyone at least truly. Father, I understand. Kate quietly stood up and turned around to leave. Fairy looked at his son's back. In a trance, Kate's entire temperament seemed to have changed. He finally saw a sharp aura that he had never seen before on Kate. That sharp aura seemed to be able to pierce through the heavens. That kind of will was exposed and unstoppable. Fairy smiled. This was the appearance that he wanted to see. This was the appearance that a young person should have. Whether or not Kate could become the first place in the Five Clans Grand Competition was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that Kate had the heart to fight. It was not desirable for cultivators to have a lack of heart to fight. If he wanted to become a true expert, he had to have a force. This force could fight against the heavens, the earth, and all living beings in the world. Of course, if Kate could really become the champion of the Five Clans Grand Competition, it would be for the best. The champion of the Five Clans Grand Competition was not just the champion of the Five Clans but also the younger generation in Spark City. This already meant that Kate had a chance to become the future number one expert of Spark City. Who would dare to underestimate the future number one expert of Spark City? Who would not be afraid? At that time, Kate would be able to protect Audrey with just his influence alone. Chapter 46. Relics. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 46. Relics. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The competition of the Five Clans arrived on time. The competition venue was located at the Divine Martial Palace in the center of Spark City. The Divine Martial Palace occupied an area of more than 100 acres. It was the largest venue in Spark City. At the same time, it was also one of the iconic buildings. On this morning, the entire city's flow of people gathered toward the Divine Martial Palace. The Davis clan was also ready to set off. A team of more than 300 people walked out of the ancient castle in a grand manner, attracting a large number of onlookers along the way. The members of the five great families were naturally the main force in the Five Clans Grand Competition. During this time, every family would be noticed by everyone in the city. And the related discussions had already spread throughout the entire Spark City a few days ago. Everyone was guessing which of the five great families would be able to stand out and take the lead in this Five Clans Grand Competition. Who would fall to the bottom and become the worst family? As for the casinos in the market, they had already started betting a month ago. The Davis family had sent out a 300-man diplomatic mission, but only 10 people were selected to participate in the competition. The age of the participants in the Five Families Grand Competition could not exceed 20 years old. As for the Davis family, only clan members above level 0.8 were allowed to participate in the competition. The entire Davis family was under 20 years old, and they could only find 10 people with cultivation levels above level 0.8. Dear Audrey, are you really going to participate in the competition? In the beast carriage, her father Calder looked at his daughter worriedly. He was actually unwilling to let Audrey participate in the Five Clans Grand Competition. He was not discriminating against his daughter. He was just worried about her safety. Although the Five Clans Grand Competition strictly forbade the killing of opponents on purpose, such things as martial arts competitions had no eyes or fists. Nevertheless, some incidences ended in death in the past. Moreover, the probability of death was very low, but being injured was very high. Any martial arts competition would have injuries. With Audrey's strength, Calder was really worried about her participating in the Five Clans Grand Competition. If he did not know Audrey's personality well and how she would not turn back once she made a decision, he might have gone all out to stop her. Father, don't worry. I'm no longer the same as before. Audrey looked at her father and said softly. She could feel the deep fatherly love from this man. It was because of this that she decided to participate in the Five Clans Grand Competition. She wanted to use her absolute strength to help him regain his dignity and status. Calder knew that he could not persuade Audrey, so he could only sigh. He took out an exquisite jade box from his pocket and handed it to Audrey. He said dotingly, "My dear daughter, this was left behind by your mother. I can finally give it to you now." Audrey curiously took the jade box and saw a crystal necklace lying inside. The pendant was an ice-blue gemstone about the size of a coin. It was beautiful and dazzling. "This is a Beyonder item. In times of crisis, it can protect you," Calder said lovingly. He looked at the gemstone necklace with a complicated gaze. It was a necklace that had once been worn on his wife's neck. Audrey picked up the necklace indifferently. Was it a necklace left behind by her mother? It seemed like her mother's background was not simple. In the entire Jones Empire, Beyonder items of this grade were rare. Audrey could tell at a glance that the gemstone necklace was a precious high-grade tier 5 Beyonder item. It contained unparalleled power. Furthermore, judging from the refining method, it was quite skilled and exquisite. It was likely not something refined by a tier 5 alchemist but something created by a tier 6 alchemist. A tier 6 alchemist was an extremely noble figure in the entire continent. There was not a single tier 6 alchemist in the entirety of the Jones Empire. Chapter 47. Treasures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 47. Treasures. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. This gemstone necklace was an extraordinary item that had defensive traits. It had an extremely strong defense. When it sensed that its master was in danger, it would emit energy to protect its master. Judging from the remnant energy contained within the gemstone necklace, as long as she wore this necklace, no one in Spark City would be able to harm her. No, that mysterious young man was an exception. That person had the cultivation of a level 50 or above monarch. He was someone who did not belong to Spark City. If he were to make a move, she would not be able to block it with just a tier 5 extraordinary defensive item. Of course, it was more than enough to take such a treasure to the Five Clans Grand Competition. With it around, no one would be able to harm Audrey. L.RG. In fact, Audrey did not need this necklace. With her current strength, the younger generation of Spark City was no match for her. Therefore, there was no one who could harm her in the Five Clans Grand Tournament. However, Audrey accepted Calder's good intentions. It was because she knew that if she did not wear this necklace, Calder would not allow her to participate in the Five Clans Grand Tournament. At 8 in the morning, the Divine Martial Palace's venue was already packed with people. At a glance, it was filled with countless people. A rough estimate was that there were more than 100,000 people who came to watch the ceremony. It was not just the people from Spark City. People from other cities would also join in the fun when they heard that Spark City was holding a grand competition. The entrance fee that the Five Clans charged for each year's Five Clans Grand Competition was an astronomical figure. The economic benefits brought by a large number of outsiders to Spark City were even more immeasurable. This was also why the Five Clans Grand Competition could be held for so many years without a break. It had also been promoted and supported by the officials. The venue was divided into the VIP area and the regular area. The VIP area only had people from the 5 great clans and the city lord's delegation. As for other forces and personnel, they were not allowed to enter the VIP area. This was the glory of the 5 families. This was the right of the organizers of the competition. Calder was the head of the Davis family. However, he did not enter the VIP area. Instead, he found a corner in the regular area. Ever since he fell out with his family, he was not willing to mingle with them. He was too lazy to listen to their gossip. In the VIP area where the Davis family was located, the contestants were already gearing up. They were all eager to go on stage and show their strength as soon as possible. Among them, Kate and Kaki were among the contestants. They were talented youths of the family, so they were naturally qualified to participate in the five families' grand competition. Of course, the reason why Kaki was able to participate was partly due to luck. The family council had stipulated that only cultivators above level 0.8 could participate in the five families' grand competition. Meanwhile, Kaki had just broken through level 0.8 a few days ago and was stuck at the lowest standard. My dear daughter, you must perform well in this competition. I don't have high expectations for you. You need to enter the top 50 of the competition, Houston said to his daughter. His daughter had done well. So to represent the family to participate in the five families' grand competition, he was naturally happy. But not everyone was qualified to represent the family to participate in the five families' grand competition. This was a recognition of her strength. That fellow's daughter was obviously a piece of trash, yet she insisted on participating in the five families' grand competition. In the end, she was almost expelled from her family by the family council. Father, don't worry. I will definitely enter the top 50 of the competition, Kaki said with incomparable confidence. Ever since she was young, she had been given the title of a genius girl. Within the family, she was also worshipped, praised by others, and flattered by others. This had always made her feel that she was mighty. Therefore, a woman like her did not lack confidence. Chapter 48. Audition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 48. Audition Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Houston nodded in satisfaction, proud of his daughter. In the past, Calder had always been superior to him in the family, regardless of status or strength. Now, it was completely different. Calder was about to lose his position as the head of the family, and he was still an elder of the parliament. Perhaps in terms of personal strength, he was still no match for Calder. But what did it matter? Calder did not have an excellent daughter. He did not have an excellent descendant. If his daughter won, he won. No matter how good you are, Calder, you will still be labeled as a useless father. Seeing the satisfaction and approval in her father's eyes, Kaki enjoyed it very much. At the same time, she secretly clenched her fists. She would definitely shine in this competition. Of course, if she could meet Audrey on the field, it would be perfect. In the past, she had no way to do anything to Audrey. She could only bully and tease her, not daring to hurt her. But on the field, she could not care less. She could openly hurt her. She wanted to break her legs in front of everyone. Oh no, the most important thing was to cut her hateful face so that she would never be able to seduce a man again. The five clans members were divided into the preliminaries and the main competition. The preliminaries were the auditions. Then, the contestants would be randomly matched from the thousands of applicants. After 10 consecutive battles, the contestants would enter the main competition as long as they could win 5 battles. This rule was relatively fair. Because it was a random match, you might be able to match a strong opponent, but you might also be able to match a feeble opponent. So, for example, in the eyes of others, contestants like Audrey, who was just a bystander, were used to earn points. If a player won 5 out of 10 matches, they would prove their strength and enter the main competition. After rounds of elimination in the main competition, the strongest 64 people would be selected. These 64 people would enter the final competition. In addition, if someone was able to win all 10 matches in a row in the preliminaries, they did not have to participate in the main competition and could directly enter the final competition. This kind of person who could win 10 matches in a row was the king of the ring. Anyone who appeared would be regarded as a seeded contestant. In the previous 5 clans' grand competitions, the probability of a king of the ring appearing was actually minuscule. This was because by randomly matching 10 matches, no one dared to guarantee that they would be able to win all of them unless it was extremely strong and had almost no opponents. According to the statistics, 3,219 participants had signed up to participate in the 5 Clans Grand Competition this time. It was clearly a very tedious task to select 68 out of the 3,219 participants. Therefore, the auditions would last for a very long time. According to the competition schedule, it would take 2 days for all the auditions to be completed. The central area of the Divine Martial Palace was divided into 100 arenas. During the competition, battles were taking place simultaneously in each arena. In Arena 39, Audrey's first opponent was a 19-year-old young man. Judging from his attire, he was not from the 5 great clans. Instead, he should be from a small clan in Spark City. "Miss Audrey, I didn't expect that my first opponent would be you." The young man looked at his opponent. He was a little surprised, but at the same time, he was also a little happy. Almost everyone in Spark City knew of Audrey's name. The news that she would participate in the 5 Clans Grand Competition had already caused a stir in Spark City a week ago. Many people had treated this matter as a joke after a meal. Naturally, he also felt that it was ridiculous. A level 1 fighter actually dared to participate in the competition. She must be a joke. Of course, at this moment, he was happy in his heart. This was equivalent to obtaining a victory for nothing. It was effortless. Chapter 49 was the focus of everyone's attention. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 49 was the focus of everyone's attention. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Miss Audrey, are you prepared to admit defeat directly, or do you want to exchange a few moves before admitting defeat? The young man said with a smile. He did not directly charge forward and attack. Instead, he gave Audrey a gentlemanly choice. In public, he did not wish to bear the reputation of bullying the weak directly. "Let's do it," Audrey said indifferently. The young man raised his brows slightly. She was really prepared to fight him. Miss Audrey was weak, but she did not lack courage. He was a level 0.6 cultivator. To deal with a level 0.1 cultivator was no different from a lion slapping an ant. "All right, Miss Audrey, be careful." The young man nodded slightly. Dealing with a trash girl was not something to be proud of. However, Audrey was not willing to admit defeat, so he could do nothing about it. He would immediately beat her. Whoosh! The young man's figure flashed, and he charged 7 to 8 meters forward in the next moment. His movements were astonishingly fast, and he was even more agile than the cheetahs in the forest. A level 0.6 cultivator was already very powerful. He could easily lift an elephant with one hand on earth, and his movement speed was comparable to that of a moving car. BDNV. The young man did not use any combat techniques. Instead, he simply struck out with his palm. He even tried to control about 10% of his strength. He was afraid that he would hit Audrey too hard and seriously injure her. Everyone knew how weak Audrey was. If he used his strength to injure her in front of everyone seriously, it would be disgraceful. In the audience area, Calder had been observing Audrey's movements from the beginning to the end. So when he saw her walk onto the arena, his body subconsciously tensed up, and he felt a little nervous. He knew that Audrey had the treasure left behind by her mother. So she would not get hurt. However, as a father, he could not help but feel nervous when seeing his weak daughter standing in the arena. On the stage, Calder was not the only one who paid attention to Audrey. Although Audrey was weak, many people paid attention to her. Who asked her to be the most famous trash in Spark City? The weakness of human nature was that they liked to see jokes and laugh at others. At this moment, there was a group of people in the audience who had come specifically to watch Audrey. They regarded Audrey as one of the highlights of this 5 Clans Grand Competition. Audrey has been assigned to Arena 39. Everyone, look over there. She's about to fight someone. Huh, Miss Audrey has really come. So it looks like the rumors are true. But what's the point of her participating in such a competition? She'll only embarrass herself, right? Who cares about her? I bought tickets to watch the competition this time because I wanted to see her embarrass herself on the stage. Ha ha ha. Am I too bad? But I really can't help it. I'm so happy to see an aristocratic young miss like Audrey make a fool of herself. Stop laughing. It's not easy for Miss Audrey either. When I heard that the Davis family was going to marry her off to a fool from the Fairley family, she was dissatisfied with the family's arrangements. That's why she deliberately came to the field to embarrass the Davis family. Actually, Miss Audrey is very pitiful. No matter how pitiful she is, she's still the daughter of a noble family. So do ordinary people need to sympathize with her? Ridiculous. Many people in the audience area were discussing Audrey. As for the VIP area where the Davis family was located, many people also paid attention to Audrey. No matter what, Audrey was also a member of the Davis family. Even though they knew that she had come to the arena to make a fool of herself, many people could not help but look over. Chapter 50. Give me another chance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 50. Give me another chance. Kate sat steadily in his seat, but he could not help but clench his fists tightly. His eyes stared unblinkingly at Arena 39. Under his calm face, his breathing became more and more rapid. Sitting next to Kate, Kaki noticed Kate's abnormality and looked at him in surprise. Then, following his gaze, she quickly found Audrey's figure. Damn it! A hint of jealousy flashed across Kaki's eyes. She wished that she could appear on Arena 39 and personally tear that detestable little bitch into pieces. Beat her up. Beat that damn bitch to death. Kaki cursed Audrey in her heart. She hoped that the people on the stage would ruthlessly beat Audrey to death. The elders of the Davis family also looked at Arena 39 one by one. At this moment, all of their faces were cold. Their gazes toward Audrey were filled with disgust and indifference. As the elders of the family, they valued the honor of the family the most. They hated people like Audrey, who had embarrassed the family. If it were not for the fact that her father was still the patriarch of the family, they would have even killed Audrey for the sake of the family's reputation. The death of a family member was nothing in front of the face of the family. After this matter is over, if she doesn't obediently marry into the Fairley clan, I will definitely teach her a lesson. The great clan elder, Pierre, said with a gloomy expression. On the 39th arena, that young man had already rushed in front of Audrey. The wind from his palm whistled, blowing Audrey's beautiful hair in all directions. He did not use his full strength in this palm, but it was enough to send Audrey flying, causing her to fall out of the arena. The others also thought so. A level 1 fighter could not block this palm strike. However, everyone thought that Audrey would be sent flying by the palm strike and then fall to the ground while vomiting blood. A scene that made everyone feel incredulous appeared in front of everyone's eyes. They saw Audrey slowly extend a hand. She was the first to strike, and she actually grabbed that person's wrist. Her slender fingers were like iron pincers that firmly grasped the young man's wrist, making him unable to move at all. The young man's pupils constricted, his eyes filled with disbelief. Although he had not used his full strength, Audrey should not be able to receive his palm. Furthermore, she had grabbed his wrist at that moment. The terrifying force made him unable to escape for a moment. He tried to struggle, but it was useless. Audrey was like a mountain that could never be shaken. No matter how hard he struggled and used all his strength, he could not break free from Audrey's palm. If you don't get serious, you won't have a third chance to attack. Audrey looked at the young man in front of her indifferently. Then, she casually flung him away. However, before he fell out of the arena, Audrey had already shown mercy, giving him a second chance to attack. The young man got up from the ground with a grave expression. There was no longer any contempt in his eyes. In that instant of contact, he had already felt the terror of the girl in front of him. It was a power that could not be surpassed, a power that could not be resisted. He could not understand why Audrey was so powerful. A person who had been mocked for more than 10 years and everyone thought she was trash was actually so powerful. Could the rumors from before be fake? He knew that Audrey had shown mercy just now. Otherwise, with her strength, she could have easily thrown him out of the ring. Miss Audrey had given him a chance to be serious and give it his all. However, he knew very well that it did not matter whether he was serious because he could not beat Audrey. If he were to do it again, at most, he would lose with less regret.